had a work session since 2010, I think, in terms of where we want to be with our investments and our investment policy. So the time is ripe for that. We can come up, who can staff it? I mean, I'm not, I think Helen knows, between the both of us, I think we can come up with outside advisors who aren't going to want our business. Yeah, the problem with having outside people, they usually want your business as well. So that's what I think, I would like to get that committee as quickly as possible and to get on the ground and start looking into, our strategy and policies. I've been looking at him and looking at UBS, who's our current manager, and I have some ideas going forward, and I'd love to share them with the committee.
So with that, we'll bring that forward to council for further discussion, but I think it starts, lays a groundwork for how we would like to proceed in the future, is making sure that you as council have all the information you need to make the financial decisions you need to make to keep the city running. And for us, when we realized that nothing had been done really in terms of any formal review of our investment strategies and policies since 2010, that this was a really good opportunity to do that for two reasons, one of which is if we go out and get a new, go out for bid for new investment advisors, they will want direction from council as to what it is that we're trying to accomplish and achieve, what our level of risks is going to be, and what parameters they can work within. So this will all be good information as we move forward with our investments. And go ahead, I guess we can go on to the financial report. Yeah.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, so I would definitely support this. And let's talk a little bit about the committee. So your thoughts were getting some, not council on the committee, or maybe some council, but some outside people for maybe have a little more financial or market experience. That I think was a great idea.
Yes, but also somebody, perhaps council. I mean,
No, I'm really good with it. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that's smart. The other thing I think council should think about is, and I know Prince William Sound Agriculture Corporation, I think in their bylaws it's every 3 years they do a review. And I think that's something that council should consider. And that's something that if we do an RFP, that the people coming in should know, all right, we're looking for somebody, but let's say every 4 years we're going to do this review. They should kind of know that. But going 10 years without even kicking the tires is not very smart business. So I think that's another thing that we ought to think about as a council is, can we change that and mandatory make it so we have to do a review? And I don't know what the time frame would be, 3 years or 4 years, but, and again, people should know that coming in. So, thank you.
Other comments or questions for presentation so far, council? Online?
I've got a couple questions.
Councilman Gard.
When we talk about the review we're talking about doing, are we talking about reviewing our policy and guidelines for how we invest, or are we talking about reviewing performance of a manager, a financial manager we're using at the time, or a financial advisor, I guess is the term we're using? Exactly what are we talking about when we're talking about review?
My thought is reviewing what the council, the investment strategy and policy. The manager can be sort of, I don't want to say secondary, but until the council really nails down what they're looking for in terms of risks and rewards for the two funds, the permanent fund and the capital fund, I think that needs to be addressed first before manager performance.
Any other questions?
No, I understand that, but we were talking about every 3 or 4 years doing a review, and I was trying to figure out what the review was at that time. I understand we need to set policy now, so we know what we're doing when we're going out. For proposals or for RFPs or however we decide to do it, but it was on that 3 or 4 year cycle that Councilman Baylor was talking about that I just wanted to get an understanding of what we're talking about reviewing.
Councilman, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things that a investment policy would establish is frequency of reviewing a performance. So I think that's one of the facets of this initial conversation and evaluation is these are our policies. How do we know if and when, and how do we measure how they're being accomplished by whomever it is that we've hired to perform those duties? So that will be a part of it. And someone, I'm sure, will have some ideas. There's probably some kind of benchmark out there of how we do that and how often is reasonable.
Is that what you had in mind, Councilman Baylor?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for council online?
This is Councilman Sherman.
Councilman Sherman.
So I feel very ignorant in asking this question, but may we and where do we read the current investment policy strategy that was set up in 2010?
Well, I can get that to council in the very near future.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, council? Okay. Manager Howarth or Ken?
I'm going to turn it over to Ken.
Okay, talking about the results so far, the actuals this year. The reports, the very first one is the general fund. Highlights of that is that one, that we have 1.7 million of CARES monies, but actually, that's unique to this year. I wanted to really compare this year and last year, which is very, very difficult, especially as a new person. But our taxes, our major revenue source is taxes, and they are tracking very well compared to last year. I don't want to say surprisingly, but given the climate, pleasantly surprised. Our sales tax is just about where it was last year. The new sin tax is a little behind of what was budgeted, but it remains to be seen for the next quarter or the rest of the summer. As Helen said, we're a little more than halfway through the year, but that means we have another half of the year, almost. The hotel or the occupancy tax is a little low so far, which is to be expected, but it isn't. It doesn't seem that. I don't know. It's, let's put it that it's low. The school debt, we know that the school debt, Governor Dunleavy canceled the reimbursement of the school debt, so that has a major impact on the revenue. What else? There was an error in the budget that we collected $100,000, $108,000 last year that was budgeted this year, so that is another hill to climb as it relates to revenues, as it relates to budget. And finally, there was $25,000 of penalties that were, I think, was related to the medical center that was erroneously booked last year and had to be reversed this year. On the expense side, our liability insurance has gone up a lot. I've been working on it ever since we got the quote of what it's going to be for the rest of the year, and we're in a tough pool. We're in a tough pool, and there were some large claims not from us, but from other people in the pool. So it's really 150,000, is a large number to what we pay. I think it's even doubled in the last 5 years for what we've paid for liability insurance. A major dock repair has come in 75,000 higher than anticipated. I think that was due to when it was taken apart, it had more deterioration than anticipated. And then we have 14,000 of legal expenses for the sale of the medical center that hadn't been budgeted. But offsetting all that, because of the medical center, with their CARES funding, they don't require our funding, so that helps to a tune of $350,000. Are there any questions so far?
Looks like we might have a lot, so I'll just go in order here. Councilman Baylor?
The dock repair, that doesn't come out of harbor budget?
Oh, it does. I'm sorry. I was mixing the two. Yeah.
Okay.
From the general fund to the.
So it's not coming out of general fund, it's coming out of.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councilman Sherman?
And nothing at this time, thank you.
Guard?
No questions now, thank you.
Meyer?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about the taxes, the sales tax, their tax. It does surprise me that they're in line with last year. I think that's a good thing, but it is a little surprising. Are we getting more possibly by online purchases, do you guys know, from?
Yes, we are. Actually, the commission, the sales tax commission, we are starting to see shouldn't say substantial. We're seeing seeing increased amounts. The Amazon, we're getting Amazon, and now we're getting the third-party Amazon, the people who use them as a marketplace. So that helps an awful lot. There are two big fish, though, that are still out there are Walmart and Target, and Best Buy as well. So the state is trying to get them, or the commission is trying to get them to start charging sales tax and remitting to us. So once they get on board, I think you'd see online sales increase a good deal.
And just for everyone's, just to remind everyone, we did agree to join AML's online sales tax department, whatever it is now. They are collecting on behalf of anybody who participates as a city. They're collecting all the sales tax revenue and then distributing back to us for a fee. And that keeps us from having to do that work on our own. And it allows the vendors to have one place in the state with which to submit their sales taxes. So it's a brand new program, getting off the ground, lots of growing to do, and I think we will only see those numbers go up.
Does that answer your questions, Councilman Meyer?
Yeah, that's good information to have. Is there any other kind of noticeable difference with the sales tax or surtax this year compared to the other years? I know you're new, so it's probably hard to really notice if one type of industry is doing better than the other, but it seems like everything's kind of offsetting each other right now from the numbers that you kind of presented with us today.
Yes, I mean, from my point of view, like I said, surprisingly, the sales tax is, I did a quick and dirty on looking at some specifics, and they've actually increased from last year. Some of the bigger retailers, so that's offsetting I think that's offsetting or it's helping the syntax sort of lightening or lessening in the accommodation as well.
And I did want to just alert everyone to the places where we have shut down city and people aren't able to participate, like the recreation department, the pool, and other things where we might have gotten some revenue in, are, as you can see, significantly trailing from last year. Don't expect that to be reversed, even with the pool and Bedarkie opening, because of the limitations put on the number of users at a time. So we are going to have to make adjustments, especially as we look forward into the 2021 budget, to say, okay, we're in a new COVID world. Things are not wide open, we're guessing, and we're going to have to adjust our revenue projections for certain departments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Schaefer? Absent. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, Councilman Baylor had my question, so that answered that. And I guess I just have a comment regarding my perception of the sales tax anyway. I think the lack of a ferry had a pretty significant effect on increasing our sales taxes, because a lot of money that would have been spent in Anchorage, people buying truckloads of groceries, those truckloads of groceries had to be bought in town. Supplies had to be bought in town. People had to stay in town instead of going to Anchorage unless you were running on the weekend and coming right back, or staying for 2 weeks. So I think that had a pretty significant effect upon our sales tax increases for this year. So that's it.
Council, any other questions on the report? Okay, turn it back over to Ken.
Okay, so sorry for melding the general and the other funds. So we can go on to the CARES funding. The horizontal spreadsheet shows our original buckets in our original budget, what has been expended through 7/31, and what we expect to spend through the rest of the year. And let's see, going by the buckets, the first responders, that is one of the, well, let me step back. On the note A, CARES funding will pay for first responders and IMT, but some of the first responders, we have contracts that are paying some of the salaries or expenses. So therefore, we can't use CARES funding for every first responder or IMT to the tune of almost $300,000. So whereas so that's over, but we adjust it, and it becomes close to what was originally budgeted. We also have CARES Act administration and on-payroll expenses. Those are mostly the ambassadors and strike team, legal and PR. We have spent more. Our run rate has gone higher than we budgeted, but I think that was due to the need for the ambassadors to take to spend more time and to be more visible, to have more of them, and the strike team as well, keeping the city safe. I think that it was a good. It's been positively.
I want to just say also with this that we will be getting a certain amount of reimbursement from the state, because they are now requested of us to contract with them to provide the testing and ambassadors that are actually greeting folks and entering the now required state information around testing into a database. So we have pretty robust greeters out at the airport, people who are meeting passengers, asking them, again, by state requirements, asking them if they have pre-tested, if they're coming from out of state, to supply their testing results and enter that into a database. So there's a lot of work that the state's requiring. The 7-day-a-week testing that we've been doing at the airport is, again, another additional expense that the state is asking us to do, and they're willing to reimburse us. So a certain number of this will be reimbursed. We don't yet know how much, and we're working on that with the state. But it's been a significant expense to provide the ambassadors in the harbor and the ambassadors at the airport and the testing at the airport. So I just wanted to let you all know that was we had no idea when we put these buckets together what we were going to have to spend and how it was going to look. And this is one that is going over. But again, we have a limited number of dollars in the CARES Fund, and we can make adjustments to these buckets as we go.
Okay, and the other bucket, the facility enhancements and PPE, there's a list on the back page, or not the back page, the other page, not the horizontal, the vertical, that delineates the 922,000. Those are projects that are either upcoming or in process.
And if anybody has any questions about how those are proceeding, Sam is here to talk about that.
Then we have the non-for-profit grants. I think Helen's been on that and has gotten that out, getting some responses. And then we have the final individual assistance grants, which is stipends or their payments to people who have been affected by CARES. And luckily, because of that mechanism, in case that will ensure that we leave no dollars on the table. Anything that we might not spend, the 12/31 deadline is fast approaching, especially when everybody's busy, spending CARES money. If there's some projects that aren't going to look like they're going to be able to be completed, we can always put the money in that bucket to ensure that it stays in the community. What else?
Okay, maybe pause for questions. Any questions, Council? Councilman Allison?
Yeah, couple comments, I guess. I don't have any real questions other than these programs such as the nonprofit grants and the individual grants. Will those come back to council prior to implementation as far as what the structure of those is, who eligible, that kind of the whole program? Is that going to come to council before it's put into the public? Are we going to see that before?
We can certainly do it with the individual assistance grants. I did put out the nonprofit grants just because we're struggling with the timeline. They have to fully expend the resources that we give them before December 31st. So we are actually working with the community foundation. We got the word out to nonprofits, and we had a number of them come in. We capped, just so you know, we asked, we allowed in each applicant to apply for up to 10% of their budget or a cap of $10,000, whichever was less, more, whatever. So we had, I think, 15 applicants, some of whom applied for $10,000, someone that applied for $500. We allowed 501c3s and C4s, which is allowable with the CARES Act funding. So we had organizations like the Chamber of Commerce apply. We had the Ski Hill apply. We had a variety of nonprofits, Cordova Arts and Pageants. I can't remember all of them.
How did we put that out? Did we
The Community Foundation put the word out to their list of nonprofits.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not as concerned about that bucket. It's the smallest bucket we've got, and
Yeah.
and we didn't overestimate on that. I guess I'm more concerned with that last that we're going to throw everything
bucket.
into.
Yep.
That's
And-
all left over on December 29th. We're going to throw everything else in and write checks to the community members, which is fine. But I'm not sure that we're done
Right. So
deciding which projects we're going to do.
right. So what we will do is we've started a process to give us a vehicle in which to distribute the funds. We have identified a card system that allows us to restrict expenditures to local businesses. So what we're doing now is getting ready to identify all local businesses. They have to have an updated business license and hopefully be current on their sales taxes in order to qualify. They'll sign up for the program, and the Cordova Cares card, Cordova Cash card, will be loaded with resources of a amount determined by council, which would then be available to local individuals who apply. They have to apply. It's a requirement, again, of the CARES funding. You can't just send it out to
Now,
everybody.
will that card have to be spent by December 31st?
No, but we have to get it out by December 31st. The card itself will have a 1-year limitation on it. We're guessing somewhere in the ballpark of, no more than $500 a person. But the cards will have to be spent with local businesses. You can't go to Anchorage and buy Costco groceries. So the goal was to do two things: provide individual support, but also support for local businesses. So, everyone who wants to use those cards will have to use it on groceries or fuel or, gifts for Christmas, whatever it is, on a business that is qualified to collect the resources from those cards.
I, as one council member, would appreciate having some summary sheet at least when this goes out, so that
Yeah,
I know how to explain it
Yeah.
to my neighbors that are going to be wondering, how come you got a card and I didn't?
right.
Because
So
that's going to happen.
we're going to have a big campaign, and it's going to have to roll soon. And I will make sure that all of you have a draft. As soon as we develop the final application form, I'll give you guys an opportunity to see that and share any concerns you have. And then our goal is to try to get this out in mid-October. So we're going to be rolling it fast.
Okay, sounds good. A couple other questions, if I may follow up to that. Have the schools approached us about any CARES funding at all?
I got an application through the nonprofit from the school district for $10,000. I'm going to move it out of that nonprofit bucket because to me it's a different commitment. So, but that's the only request we have.
Okay, I think we just need to make it clear to the schools that if they're needing money for this, I see the federal FEMA is going to stop funding their
PPEs. and things, yeah.
PPEs the middle of September for schools, because they consider that part of their regular expenses now, when it's clearly because of COVID. So
And I've been in touch.
anyway,
Yeah,
I want to be sure that we're communicating with
Yep.
them. And I've made it clear to their board, through meetings and such, that we want to hear from them. And, obviously we need to hear pretty soon. I still really think we need to work with them on a restroom or portable, another one of those portable trailers or something for the elementary school park. I think it's needed there worse than any place else in town, quite frankly. And I'm also, I know I'm only one of 7, but the E911 rubs me wrong, because we've been discussing that for 10 years, for several reasons, because we've been discussing it for 10 years and it's been stuck on the addressing for 5 years, and it hasn't gone, the addressing, as far as I can see, hasn't gone anywhere. The other reason is because the state, had a committee looking at a state 911 system, and their recommendation last week to the governor was to postpone any decision on that until later, to hold off on any E911 system. So if the state isn't, well, number one, if the state is going to do it, we don't need to. And number two is if they're not ready yet, I don't think we are. And I know we're not ready to do E911 without addressing. That's the next step that needs to happen here. So anyway, that's, you know, I'm only one of 7, but I certainly do not support E911 system for this. And I think we need to find other ways to route that money.
We definitely looked into whether it was a possibility, and I think right now, again, given that all funds have to be expensed and projects on the ground by December 31st, that is not going to be a viable thing for this calendar year. I think to add, to address your other things, with the, yeah, because the restrooms, everything, it's really about that December 31st deadline that is, you know, causing us major.
I just thought we could buy another trailer and
yeah, I think,
have that paid for by December 31st, certainly.
yeah, and I think Sam can speak to timing. It's been hell.
So I can give you I'll just give you a quick update on the projects that we've talked about, and then we can talk about that one. So don't let me forget. Okay, so the last time we talked about the RFP that came back way too high, and we took that, we didn't accept that. All of those projects in some form are out to bid, and they are due September 8th. So for the shower unit at Odiak Camper Park, currently the water and sewer trenching and getting the pipe to where the trailer will be is out to bid. We determined that we could do it through the park and to the grassy field, or not the grassy field, sorry, the multi-purpose field, instead of going out into the highway. So that's out. And the shower, I just got an email as we were sitting here, is completed. They sent me the specs I needed to understand where the electrical was and what the size of the sewer out was. So that's awesome. So we can work on the pad. I just did a review with the structural engineer on the lean-to. Those drawings and a material list should be done by the end of the week. So I think shortly we'll have those other 2 portions of that project out. So that's that. The snack shack upgrades are out, and they're due the 8th. We're working with a local contractor on the flooring in Bedarkie. The rest of the work in Bedarkie, the mop closet, or the mop sinks and the janitor closets are out on RFP, which is due the 8th. So those are those 3. For the paperwork and everything is completed for the strike team truck, should be here soon. I got a conceptual drawing and also a materials list for the ambulance bay, working with a contractor to see if they want to do that. We are number 14 in the fire marshal list for the shipyard bathrooms. Not really sure what that means. I'm hoping they're very tiny projects for the shipyard.
Oh, shipyard.
I'm hoping they're very tiny projects. I don't really know anything about what's going on with the E911 and that proposal. The other thing is the sneeze guards are done. They're here, they're in, they look pretty cool. We did get 2 freestanding hand sanitizers from a local contractor or a local company. We're hoping to get a few more, but we're good for the Cordova Center to open with those 2. And we also are working with a local contractor on foggers. So we have 1 handheld fogger, and that will be used in the museum and the library and the atrium when we open next week. And we really are trying to get a backpack for when the auditorium gets used, because that's a lot of, in the auditorium, it's a lot of work to do that with a tiny hand sprayer. So we're hoping we can get that. We have one on order with a company that is way behind, as every company who makes these is. So we're hoping we can come through with a local source. The other cool thing about the local source is they're actually producing the disinfectant in town, and so you can get it. So that's pretty nice. So back to the bathroom question. I mean, I guess we could put it on the list, but we'd have to create, so if we got just a restroom, not a shower, 2, I guess you'd need a boys and a girls, and then we'd have to figure out how to get it into the sewer, where we would put it, and a pad and all that stuff in between. So depending on what happens on the 8th, if we don't get any responses, I mean, we're going to have to go to Plan B real quick, and I'm not really sure what Plan B is at this point. We'll deal with that on Tuesday, because I'm sure we'll get good responses. So, but I'm willing
All
to,
about money.
I'm willing to, put it out there and try to get it to work, but I don't have any concept of where we would put it at the school grounds.
And then I don't know what the timeline was between when we ordered the bathroom unit and when it actually gets on the ground, but there's a certain amount of, like,
Right,
this
so
just got
if-
constructed.
It just came off the line, so it now has to ship. So it has to get from,
Indianapolis?
I'm
Or
Indiana,
South Carolina or something?
back east to Seattle, and to here from Seattle on the barge. So you do have that time frame to deal with. And then the whole construction of a pad and all that. But, if that's the direction we want to go, we can try to make it work. I'm just not clear on so we buy it and we can't get the pad in or something, where, is that completed?
The way that
That
the
would be the
state,
question.
and the state, I will say that the feds keep changing their rules around the CARES funding. Yesterday, when Dong Nguyen was visiting, there was some conversation about loosening of the restrictions on the CARES fund, specifically the deadline, which would be a huge help to many of us who are struggling to, how do we not only buy the thing, but get it on the ground and functional by December 31st. Some communities are setting a really early, if we haven't fully expended our funds, completed our projects by December 15th. That's it. So there's a lot of concern that people don't cross that December 31st line, even accidentally or due to whatever. They're just not going to do it. With the Fed's restrictions, that has become a lot of our driver as well here. It's like, oh, we can't do that by December 31st. It's off the table. So we're crossing our fingers on these projects that we've put out to bid, that whomever bids on them, or if people bid on them, that we're able to get them completed and paid for. And that's where we're at.
My common sense might be whacked a little bit, but I thought this was a portable trailer on wheels, and it doesn't necessarily require a pad to be there. I know that we want one, and we want to lean to and everything over it. We want to protect it. But as far as being here and functional and operational, I would think I can hook up my motorhome in less than a couple hours. I'm sure you could hook this thing up in less than a couple hours too, if you had the right holes in the ground and right pipes coming up. So I understand that we want the pad and we want all of that stuff, but
It may not
to
be
make it
possible. Yeah.
operational by December 31st, we might have to make it operational as a portable unit like
Right.
it's designed for.
Well, we would have to hook it into sewer because we eliminated the holding tank. But we could do that because we'll have the water and sewer line there, and yeah, that's a possibility.
I'm just saying there's options for.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're
that's
going to
Plan
get.
B.
Yeah, I think we're going to
Those
get
are
pretty
kind
good
of Plan
with, we're going to have some hacks for all of this. Figure out, okay, it's not working, what are we going to do to make it work? Because I promise you, there isn't a dime that's going to get left on the table here. We're not going to have to return any money. We're going to make it work.
Okay, I'm going to allow a little bit of time for other councilmen that might have questions on the CARES Act projects and funding as well. We're running a little short on time. Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I'm assuming the airport ambassadors, that'll be a continuing program.
Yes, at this point.
Okay, so what's our plan to get them a solid structure out there?
We have rented a Connex that is going into place tomorrow morning. It's being moved out there. We're getting a generator from the fire department. And it's a Conex that has doors on both ends, so we can walk people through from one side to the other. So we do have that. We did try yesterday to see if we could use the airport itself. Got permission from Vice President of Alaska Airlines to go ahead and give it a go, and it didn't work. So we had all the ambassadors in the airport trying to do things with a lot of passengers, and it was just decided that we need to move them out. So the Conex is our solution, and we'll have that in place at least for the next month. We're leasing it for 1 month, and we can do a full year lease if we need to, and see. We're going to see how it goes.
Well, the Connex will be, good with our moderate weather, but as we get into our nastier weather, did we look at getting an ATCO trailer? They have office trailers, they have all different kinds of trailers. Something more permanent that would have heat and electrical and more comfortable. The Connex, if you don't insulate the top of them, they're going to condensate. There's going to be, in this moderate temperature right now, I'd call it moderate wood fine, but
Right.
it won't be in another month.
So again, we're going to give this a go. It was literally our tent blew down on Sunday, and yesterday.
Well, that wasn't unexpected, though.
No,
I said this 2
absolutely.
months ago.
Yeah,
we
no.
needed a permanent structure.
Yeah. So we're just, to be quite honest, we're responding. We're reacting, not responding. And responding will be, that's a good point about the ATCO trailer, but for right now, we're just getting this in place for the month. We're still trying to identify how long the state wants us to continue that program. And if we get that contract in and know that they wanted us to be there through next, March, April, May, June, whatever, I think what you're suggesting is a really good idea, and we can look into that.
So that would go under the projects and process, or well, not process, but funding page there, wherever we have it.
Well, again, these funds are strictly what we are going to expend through December 31st of this year. So our commitment from the state, our contract with the state, will involve a different pool of funds, and we can wrap this into the budget as they decide what they want us to do. So we could look at a more permanent structure. But that will be part of the state contract.
So we're not going to give away charity money that could have paid for the permanent structure. I guess that's where I was.
Right. No. That is not, that wouldn't be our program. That is the state asking us to do that program. So they will be the ones reimbursing for that.
Quickly, questions from council. Sherman? Regarding the.
Thank you.
Meyer? Vice Mayor Meyer, any questions on the CARES Act projects or funding or programs?
Sorry, I didn't realize my phone was on mute too. No questions, thank you.
Councilman Guard?
No questions this time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the work session?
Just a quick question.
Councilman Baylor?
So I don't know when the change was, but recently was able to pay my property taxes using a credit card. So, and my building permit. So when did that change come in, and what kind of effect will that have on our budget? Did we analyze that on how much money we're going to lose? Are we paying 3% credit card fees? How is that going to come about?
The use of the credit card is more because of CARES right now. We're to facilitate the collection of the funds. We are paying, various rates, under 3% for the majority of it. And so I haven't really done analysis on it. It's more, it's sort of happened, I guess. But it's something Helen and I are both the city manager and I are both looking into in terms of what to do going forward, whether there's a fee involved, what to do, how it works in collection. Will we get more collection? If you're saying how much it will cost, the flip side is a delinquent account can pay with a credit card, where it might not have.
Well, I guess I wouldn't. We raise taxes on alcohol and tobacco and other things, and I wouldn't want to turn around and give money back to a credit card company. If we're going to discount, I would give me a discount to give you cash or a check. One of my suppliers, when you pick up, or you order materials, if you don't pay for it right then and right there with the credit card, they charge you 2% when they bill it. So, yeah, I wouldn't, again, as Mr. Allison said, I'm 1 of 7, but I don't like giving away money. So not when we raise taxes.
And again, to kind of build a little bit on what Ken was saying is we and many other communities have adjusted how they're collecting their taxes and how they're handling billings of all kinds. For instance, we did waive penalties and fees on any, not on property taxes, but on all the other fees that we collect. We wanted to make sure that people weren't put in a position because of the uncertainty that they were getting charged penalties and interest. So that was waived through the end of this calendar year. It's not going to be a huge amount of money. We also did expand the credit cards to include property taxes, again, to provide an easier method for people to pay and hopefully easier collection. And so we'll have an analysis of that after this property tax cycle, and we'll let you know what the impact's going to be. Again, it's a guesstimate, but most people are still paying with their with checks.
Okay, so I'll adjourn the adjourn the work session. And as we go into the public hearing, if you're in the public and have it in front of you, I'm just going to give you a little preemptive. That telephone number to call in is 253-6202. So I'll call the public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you.
I lost my mic. Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Jeff Guard,
Here.
Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer is absent, David Allison,
Here.
David Gleason.
I'm here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, so the public hearing this evening, and again, if you'd like to testify, the call-in number is 253-6202. The public hearing is regarding Emergency Ordinance 1191, and that is an emergency ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, continuing the city's declaration of a local emergency and acknowledgement of a statewide emergency resulting from COVID-19, and amending the City of Cordova Health Advisory Plan to supplement Appendix A with an updated alert matrix. Did we have another councilman join us? Okay, that was our call-in phone coming online. Heard a little beep there. So is there anyone who would like to testify on that emergency ordinance 1191? Again, that's an updated alert matrix. Has level 1 green, level 2 green, level 3 yellow, level 4 orange, and level 5 red. Did you want to speak to this, Manager Howard?
Certainly. As we've experienced COVID in our community and gotten recommendations from the state and national teams, we are getting more sophisticated in our understanding of the disease and how the medical team in particular wants to guide us as we move through this. So they came up with 2 levels of green. One is wide open community. Nothing is different than how it was 10 years ago. Level 2 is an advisory, and that's where we are right now. There isn't really concern about community spread. Everyone still needs to be watchful and follow the health precautions that are recommended, but most people can go about their business as usual. We were in yellow a couple weeks ago, and that was because we had community cases. It was to raise the alert level so that people knew that they needed to be much more cautious. Orange level is an opportunity for our medical team to say, okay, in our particular community, if something were to happen that was unique to our community, an outbreak of some kind or another, we would have our own little direction, an orange direction, that would allow us to have a local response that was different than perhaps the state currently does. And then a red level is all hell's broke loose. We need to really lock down our community. So the medical team, again, has a very clear metrics that they are using to decide at what point and under what circumstances we will go to these different color advisory levels. But this document will give you a general idea and will give the medical team the flexibility to move within those colors based on their own assessment of what the medical needs are. So this will be the, I hope, final document that will be in front of you on our emergency plan. And the medical team has reviewed this and did develop this in conjunction with the emergency management team. And this is the recommendation of the group.
So again, we're in a public hearing. If you'd like to testify from the public on this emergency ordinance 1191, the call-in number is 253-6202. If you're outside Cordova, 907-253-6202. And we don't have any calls at this time, so we'll recess for a couple of minutes.
Are we in recess?
Yes. We're in recess.
So I just want to throw out there that after reading this agenda and listening to last meeting on the recorder, that I wasn't feeling very well. So I went in and had my attitude tested, and it came back negative. So that'll be the tone of my questions tonight.
I don't know, is that a metrics on the COVID thing?
Yeah.
Attitude? I think it should be, because it's been really hard to keep it's just been hard.